Hey everyone, and welcome to Nuvo Church. We're so excited to be celebrating this Easter season with you through our Good Friday online experience.
Yeah, we know that with everything going on in the world right now, we are all experiencing some type of uncertainty. Whether it be in our families, our health, or our finances, many of us know someone or likely will know someone who gets COVID-19. It's an unsettling time, but today, Patrick is going to be talking about how faith, hope, and fear all work together in our lives, often in unexpected ways.
That's right. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, and we wanted to tell you that if it's your first time tuning in, which is a vast majority of you, our hope is that you would feel connected, that you would experience some helpful content, and ultimately that you would be inspired to take the next step in your faith journey. Now, we'll be together for about 40 minutes. We'll have music, we'll have a message, and then at the end, we're really excited about this. We're going to have a chance to connect with each other after this service is over.
Yeah, so make sure you stick around through the end, and we'll give you some details about connecting after. But right now, we're going to experience a powerful song from our friends Joey and Kelly called Raise a Hallelujah. There's one particular lyric that talks about hope rising from the ashes. Whatever you brought with you to this moment, my hope is that you find yourself encouraged by this song, encouraged by these lyrics. So let's check it out together.
I raise a hallelujah.
That's such a great reminder. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated because the King is alive. All of us have ideas about church or Christianity or who Jesus is. But whatever your ideas about those things, what we all can come around is the brokenness of our world needs redeeming. Often the local church feels like a separate thing. It's a subculture. But that's not what the church is all about. The local church is about coming together to build and experience a new humanity. The way of Jesus leads us to come open-handed with our life and to trust him to multiply what we bring, to do something incredible in this world.
So true. And that's why for us, generosity is such an important value to both our family and to our church, right? We believe that what we do with our resources impacts our heart and every other part of our lives. Now for us, we talk about financial resources as a regular practice because we've seen the ways that God uses our open-handedness to both shape us, our family, but also to make a significant difference in the world. Now, sometimes at our church, we'll talk about it and how it relates to our spiritual life. Other times, we'll talk about it and how we can leverage that to help other people who might be less fortunate in our city. And then other times, it will be about how sometimes a lack of giving can be connected to our financial fears or anxiety. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to bring what we have and trust God to multiply it and grow it exponentially to bring hope and healing to our world. Now, that's our family, that's our church, but we would love to invite you as a part of that journey.
Yeah, last week we were in a conversation with one of our team members who has a daughter on the front lines at a hospital. We even have another team member who works at a hospital who contracted COVID-19. She was quarantined for a month, and then last week she just started working back at the hospital again, and she's specifically serving those who have the virus. Those in the medical field are real life heroes to us, and we wanted to say thank you to them. In the midst of the coronavirus outbreak, we've decided that we want to provide the workers with food at their shifts. Naturally, their world is upside down right now, and we wanted to make it just a little bit easier.
That's right, and we wanted to invite you to be a part of that with us. This is a moment for all of us to come together with open-handedness on behalf of other people. So I'd love to invite you to partner with us to say thank you to our medical heroes during this time by buying them a meal that will be delivered to them at the hospital during one of their shifts. Now there are a couple of ways that you can give to that right now online. You can text the word Columbus to the number 77948. You can also go and give by going to our website at nuvochurch.org/give or by clicking the link in the comment section right now. Again, we want to say thank you for partnering with us to make a difference in Columbus. Now, with all that said, we're about to jump into the talk. I'm super excited about what we're going to be talking about. And so over these next few minutes, we'd love for you to comment along in the comment section, maybe even tag somebody if there's something that sticks out to you. But for the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about what it looks like for faith, hope, and fear to all coexist together. When was the last time that you had deep anticipation for what was coming down the road? Now, you know that feeling. It doesn't just happen in your mind. Your body seems to feel anticipation too, doesn't it? It's like you feel excitement and butterflies, anxiety and joy all at the same time. You can see it on people's faces, right? You can read it all over a child when they just can't wait. You see it in the eyes of a father right before they walk their daughter down the aisle. You can sense it in the nervous energy of a brand new employee on their first day at the office. You hear it in the deep breath of a new father when they hold their baby for the very first time. And you can watch it all over the senior in high school who is next in line to hold their diploma. I mean, come on, you can even sense it when you've been waiting on your name to be called at your favorite restaurant so you can finally sit down and eat, right? I mean, come on, that is an amazing feeling. Now, right along with positive anticipation, you also know what it's like to experience disruption, don't you? Most of us, we know what it's like to anticipate and be on this path or trajectory, but we also know what it's like for that path to be disrupted by something that we didn't see coming along the way. And it's in the simple moments in our lives, but also the most meaningful moments as well. It's when you're sitting in your car with the windows rolled down in the summer, feeling all of the good things on your way home, right? And then you get stuck behind that car that decides to drive 5 miles under the speed limit, right? There's no way around, there's no way to pass. What felt like freedom, it now just feels like this endless cycle of waiting. right? This happens in your mind too, right? You're focused on a project and then you get the call from that person or a text from that guy or an email from that coworker, and it just throws you. I mean, you're stuck now in what seems like this endless cycle of negative thoughts because of their criticism, and it's like distraction that's fueled by disruption, right? One of the more painful pieces of disruption is when you're forced to pause or you're forced to stop, right? When what you planned is canceled, when what you most desire feels like it may never happen, when you're progressing in your career but now you've lost your job, when you're trying to have kids but year after year after year it seems like it just isn't happening for you, when your life is moving in one direction and you get that diagnosis or that piece of bad news and your world seems to go in slow motion for a moment or for an entire season of your life. Disruption brings those seasons of waiting and distraction and even pause and stopping, and it's often tethered to fear that we have. Now, right now, our entire world is experiencing that kind of disruption. Right? I never knew how much I needed the things that I love, but I need Mexican food right now, and I'm not getting it, right? I need the non-essential businesses that I wasn't even thinking about at times. Every part of our world has changed. Our communication has changed. Our relationships have changed. Honestly, it can feel heartbreaking to adjust to this new normal or new way of being in the world. And on the other side of that, it's fear. Now, I know for me, I think about those that I love who would be most vulnerable to COVID-19. And there are moments that I feel fear around that. I have friends on the front lines of helping patients in the hospitals in our area, and I feel the disruption that they're experiencing in their lives. And like you, I see all of the economics around this, right? I've had 9 friends this week who are all laid off from their jobs. I've had other friends who've had their salaries cut in half. I've had conversations with 2 particular friends this week who are retired, and it's like they've watched their entire savings just dwindle in a matter of days. What we all do is we sit and wonder, what's the world going to look like in a month or 3 months or even 3 years from now? Now, we all respond to that differently. I know people, probably like you do, who just sit and kind of pretend like it's not happening. I know others whose lives have ramped up and they don't even have time to feel or process the emotions that they have in their life right now. And then others, this fear sort of creeps in around 3 a.m. when the kids are asleep and it's just them and Netflix and the fan that's spinning, right? Sometimes it's like this slow motion sort of cycle. Sometimes it feels like the speed of light. But fear, it comes in these moments and it's connected to the deepest parts of who we are. Now, what's interesting about emotions is that they're always connected to how we are currently looking at the world. I think that's why a lot of times it feels like hope, faith, and fear, they can't coexist with one another. Almost like our mind is pre-programmed to experience faith and to experience fear as if there's this weird conflict between the two. And then on top of that, when it comes to faith conversations, we're presented with ideas that make it seem like you have to have one or the other, right? Either faith takes precedence or fear takes precedence. Now, no one ever says this out loud. What is actually being said is that your emotions can invalidate your faith. The problem with that is that your emotions are deeply connected to your humanity. Those impulses of fear, they just are. It's not that they're good or bad, they just are. It's a part of you, right? Fear doesn't disqualify your faith, it illuminates your humanity. And the beautiful part about that is that Christianity's foundation is built on the truth that God became human too. It's easy to allow our conversations in religious circles to focus on the divinity of Jesus, right? That he's the Son of God, and I deeply believe that he is. But did you know that the title that Jesus continually gives himself when he's talking with others, he gives himself the title, the Son of Man. The meaning of the Son of Man? It's human. Now think about that. We find Jesus sitting at tables, eating with friends. We find him with dirty feet that need to be washed. We find him exhausted by the crowds of people and needing to get away and just rest. We find him frustrated with people. We find him getting angry with people. We find him experiencing betrayal and compassion and forgiveness and heartbreak, and then deep moments of love as well. One of the most beautiful and disturbing moments in Jesus' life is just before his death. Matthew, who is one of his closest followers, talks about Jesus praying before he would be taken off to trial and eventually killed. Jesus has gone to this garden area with some of his close friends so that they would be there to give him comfort and support. And here's what Matthew says about these moments. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, And he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And he took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Can we just stop right there? Think about this for a minute. God feels, God suffered, God is in the pain within the chaos. God knows what it is to be human. He's brought close friends to be with him, just nearby, and he feels sorrow and trouble. Then Matthew goes on. Then he, being Jesus, says to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." And going a little further, he fell on his face on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Now think about that. Overwhelmed with sorrow, he falls to the ground and begged for this not to have to happen to him. I mean, let that sink in. This isn't the military liberation type of leader that many of his followers assumed that he would be. This isn't the stand up with a sword and power 300 kind of thing, right? God comes and he's among us. And what's miraculous in and of itself is that he comes, and the beautiful part is he experiences the pain, that he's in it with us, that he suffers as we do. He senses the chaos and he falls to the ground begging that he wouldn't have to walk this road. Now there's this other account, and it's by a guy named Luke, who's a physician, and he gives us like this physical account of what anxiety does to Jesus' body in this moment. Here's what he says. "And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground." What Luke is describing is an actual medical condition where the body's response to this severe anxiety is to actually sweat blood. See, Jesus knew what was to come, but it wasn't just a knowing, he felt it deeply. And this leads us to the moments that encapsulate what Good Friday is all about. Jesus is then taken and he's arrested and he's put on trial and he's humiliated and he's sent away to be crucified. Now, in our world, we're somewhat immune to what this type of execution would actually look like or feel like or smell like, but it's horrific. He would have carried a large piece of wood through the town as the crowd yelled at him. All of this after he had been beaten to the point of death. And nails would be driven through his wrists and his ankles, and a small platform would be fastened below his feet so that he could push himself up until he was too tired to actually breathe, and eventually he would suffocate on the cross. Now, the psychological part of this would have been equally as disturbing as the physical. Most images that we see of Jesus are of him hanging high above this small crowd with soldiers standing around. The Romans had perfected the psychological part of this as well. Many scholars believe that Jesus would have been crucified at eye level, so onlookers could come close enough to hurl insults and spit on him. And then on top of that, some of Jesus' closest friends were there, but more importantly, his mother was there. Now, I have 2 kids, and I can't even begin to fathom what those moments would be like for a mother to watch her son on that cross die and look into his eyes and know that this would be how it ends for him. This is the Son of God. This is the Savior of the world. This is the Son of Man. So what do you do if you're one of the ones who had followed him closely? I mean, this was the Savior of the world. This is the one who is to free you and bring you the life that you had desired, and hopefully bring you into a place of happiness and joy and peace and even power. But at this moment, those were the last things that these disciples would have felt. They were full of uncertainty and they were full of fear. And so what did they do? They ran and they hid. Now come on. That's us, isn't it? Like there are parts of your story where God failed to meet your expectations and it seemed like he was distant or far away, and you looked at him and you were like, a good God should do this because if a good God could, then a good God should do what I think a good God should do, right? And so we run from it, or we distance ourselves, or we stop asking the questions that ultimately we're afraid to find out the answer to, because intuitively we know that our greatest fear might be realized, and that's that we're actually alone, that maybe he isn't there, that maybe the religious God-type belief, it's ultimately let us down, and ultimately God has let us down. So we hide within this deafening silence that was supposed to be filled with his salvific power. But this is where the divine nature of God intersects with the human nature of our world. Friday gives way to Sunday, and death is overcome through resurrection. Death becomes new life and new possibility and new beauty. And what does Jesus do? He goes to those same followers who had left him in fear, and he goes to them and he meets them exactly where they are. The physician Luke describes the moment like this. While they were still talking, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and they were frightened, thinking that they saw a ghost. And he said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why did doubts rise in your minds? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." Jesus is essentially saying, the divine power of God is with you in your humanity. Look, touch, feel, see, I am with you. You are not alone because God knows, God feels, and God sees. So in the moments that you feel fear or uncertainty, chaos, or heartbreak, when you experience it with yourself, or when you feel fear for people that you love, when you feel uncertainty around your finances or the economy or how you will be provided for, right? When you stand in silence because you don't have the words and you can't find the answers. What I hope for you in those moments is that you shift your perspective about how you experience all of those emotions. There's a couple of things that I feel like you can lean into. The first thing is this: you need to bring yourself from the present moment. It's in those moments where you experience fear or negative emotions that you ground yourself in the present. You can't control every part of the future. You can't control the things that are beyond your grasp. But at the same time, fear doesn't control your current response. The second thing is this: give yourself freedom to experience the emotion as it comes. There is no guilt and no shame for whatever impulse of emotion that you experience. Our emotions are part of our existence. They simply are. So allow yourself to experience them and don't suppress them. The third thing is this: choose to be curious about the emotion rather than be controlled by the emotion. You gotta name it, think about it, allow it to move through you, but not control you. The next thing is respond to fear with intentional love. What feels broken and uncontrollable is mended through our intentional responses of love for one another and for our world. Think about this: what is one action, big or small, that you can take right now in spite of everything that you're currently feeling? And the last thing is this: acknowledge that you are not alone. God is with you, He is for you, He knows what it is to experience whatever it is that you're feeling. Allow yourself to pray and meditate in Scripture and shape your thoughts and your mind. Remind yourself and discipline yourself to be connected with other people, even digitally in this time period, right? Reject isolation by choosing relationship with other people. Community has a way of putting fear in its proper place in our lives. Remember this: fear may be a part of us, but it will not control us. Fear may pass through us, but it will not guide us. Fear may illuminate our humanity, but it will not determine our resolve to give and receive hope. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and she's a force of nature in our home, right? Her curiosity and her willpower, they're so much fun to watch, especially at this stage. And the other day we were outside and we were playing on the swing set that's in our backyard, and there's this ladder that goes to the top of this like treehouse thing that's connected to a slide. And so she walks right up to this ladder and looks up at it with all of the confidence in the world, like this is gonna be her moment. And she's never done this before, right? She's only watched her older brother go down the slide. And day after day, she watched him do it. But today was gonna be her day to climb that ladder and then go down the slide for herself. And so she takes like one step up the ladder, and then another step, and then another. But by the time she gets to the 4th step, she discovers just how high she is, and fear sets in. Her tiny little hands, they like grip the steps so tightly, and then her next response is one that's hardwired into any child. She starts looking for her dad. And with her hands gripping that step so tightly, she just stares at me and she waits for me to come over. Now, it's not just to reassure her that things are gonna be okay, but it's to reassure her that I'm going to be with her for the next step that she takes. So I walk over, I put my hand on her back, and then she takes the next step, and the next step, and the next step, until she makes it all the way up the ladder. In this season of our lives, so many of us need to be reminded that there's a God who not only knows what we're facing, but he's right there with us for the next step. He's calling us to respond to our fear with selfless love for others, and then trust him with every step along the way. So as a prayer for you, and a prayer for your family and your friends, I want to read these words that are adapted by L.R. Nost. May we not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world, for all things break and can all be mended. May we realize that intention more than time will bring wholeness and peace where there are chaos and fear. So may we go to love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally, for the broken world waits in darkness for the light of Christ that moves through us.
Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you.
1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you, he is with you, in the morning, in the evening, in your coming, and your going, and your weeping, and rejoicing. He is for you, 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 he is for you. And may his favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you, he is with you, in the morning, yeah, in the evening, in your coming, and your going, in your weeping, and rejoicing. He is for you, 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 he is for As we move forward this week, that's such a great reminder. We know that for the next few weeks in our country and around the world are likely to be very difficult. But the idea that we're not alone, that God knows the emotions we're experiencing and has promised his presence is such a good reminder. I think that one of my big takeaways is to choose curiosity about the emotion rather than to be controlled by the emotion. Let it pass through me, not control me.
And our hope is that you know that you're not alone in any of this, but that you also know that you have people who want to come alongside of you. We're going to be launching digital groups here at our church and spend some time every single week hanging out, getting to know each other, but more deeply than that, we're going to be locking arms together as we navigate these uncertain times. We believe deeply that the local church should be a space for us all to explore and integrate faith, an ever-expanding table to process our doubts and beliefs, knowing that faith is a journey that we experience together in community. It's a place that looks like hope and feels like home. We'd love to invite you to be a part of Nuvo Church with us, but even bigger than that, we would love to invite you to build Nuvo Church with us.
If you're watching live, I would love for you to join us right now on a digital group. We'll spend about 15 minutes hanging out together and coming alongside one another during this time. You can join in a live conversation right now by clicking the link in the comment section or by going to nuvochurch.org/groups. If you're watching on playback, you can let us know you're coming to the next one by also going to nuvochurch.org/groups. Days and times are listed there, and we'd love to connect with you soon. Thanks for being a part of this online community. We had a lot of fun. We hope you did too, and we'll see you soon.